Hey, hello everyone. This is Jimmy Olawale. I am back after a long hiatus. I hope you're all doing very well. Um, Today I would like to talk about mental illness. I've been reading in the news and hearing from friends about a lot of things that have been going on around the world, Nigeria as well. There have been a series of people committing suicide. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, talking about mental illness. And I decided, you know what, let me have a conversation with you guys about it. Some of you might not know about what I do as far as my day job is. I'm actually a therapist, a mental health clinician. I'm licensed in the state of Ohio. I provide counseling to people, whether on marital issues or depression issues, anxiety issues, any kind of mental health issues. This is what I do for a living, and I'm licensed to practice here in the state of Ohio. I want to talk. The title of this talk is that mental illness is not a spiritual issue. Many of you know that I'm a Christian and I post a lot of things about God and faith, but I just want to have this conversation with us starting with this premise. The mental illness is not a spiritual issue. It's not something that with the prescription for praying and that it will disappear. I know that prayer answers a lot, but I don't want to box mental illness because I think that a lot of us have interesting ideas about what mental illness is. Mental illness is a very serious thing. There are many, illnesses that fall under that category. The most common ones that we know of are depression and anxiety, and then you can go further, bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. What I have noticed a lot among Africans, which I belong, Nigerian, is that we tend not to want to talk about this. We have it in our families. We know family members who have mental illness, or rather label people as crazy than actually deal with the problem. But mental illness is a brain of the disease. It's a disease of the brain. Just like you would have diabetes or you would have heart issues, it's the same way that people also have issues with their brain. And as such, it affects, people in different ways. Something like depression, which is very, very dangerous. Often we hear about depression, but then we think that it's not a big deal. Depression is actually a really dangerous illness if left untreated. It can cause people to commit suicide, or I won't even call it commit suicide. I say complete suicide. I want to tell you that if you are struggling with mental illness, find a therapist, find a counselor. You should not be ashamed because you have mental illness. And I think that it is so unfortunate that we make people feel like they have to hide. People share all the time, I have high blood pressure and I take medication for my high blood pressure. I have diabetes and I take medication for diabetes. But when it comes to mental illness, we act as if this is something like from the devil or something, or like the person is possessed. And what tends to happen then is that people hide. People hide their problems. They hide their illnesses. They don't get help because we as a society, we don't create space for people to, express how they feel, to share, some of their struggles. And the truth is that a lot of these mental illnesses, they are treatable and they're manageable. Depression, as an example, is a treatable illness. It is manageable by medication and by counseling. I remember when I had my first child, I really suffered from postpartum depression, which is the kind of depression that you have after you have a baby. And I really didn't pay that much attention. I just knew that I was really sad and really apathetic. I lost energy. I had no interest in anything. But after I had my second child, I was a clinician then. That was when I realized, that, oh my goodness, it's happening again. Someone would say, well, you just had a baby, you should be happy. Yes, a part of me was happy, I guess, that I had a baby, but chemically speaking, my body was doing something different. I was tired all the time. I wanted to sleep all the time. I was always ready to cry about anything. If you say, oh, I'm happy today, I'm ready to just bust into tears and start crying for no reason. I felt really isolated because I really couldn't share it with people. And I really didn't even want to tell people. I felt really, really sad. And I felt guilty for feeling sad for having a baby. But I knew the signs and I knew better. And I went to my doctor and I told my doctor and I said, listen, I think I have postpartum depression. I was lucky because I knew what to look out for. And I told my doctor, I have postpartum depression. And she was like, she went through it and she said, okay. I said, put me on a medication. I need to get rid of this. I need to get better. And she did. And after about 3 to 4 months, I was back to my normal self. And it was gone. There is no reason for us to keep suffering. There's no reason for us to keep suffering in silence. And we need to stop shaming people because they're not feeling well. We don't shame someone when they say they have cancer. We actually have empathy. We have compassion. We don't shame someone when they say they have high blood pressure. So why do we shame people when they say that they have mental illness? If you have depression, if you are finding that you are feeling sad or you are lacking motivation, you're lacking interest in things that used to be fun for you, you don't even want to hang out with anybody, you just want to isolate all the time, you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling guilty, you are having crying spells, you're feeling fatigue, your sleep is not good anymore, your appetite has been affected, whether you're eating too much or you're eating too little. You might be depressed. And it's okay because there is help. There's no reason why anybody needs to suffer in silence. I think that we create an environment that is so toxic because people feel like they're weak. And mental illness is not about weakness. It's your brain. And the brain is an organ. And it does whatever it wants to do from time to time. So the most important thing that you need to do if you know someone who has mental illness, or if you have mental illness, is to get help. There is no reason to suffer alone. Suffering by yourself is not going to make it better. Pastors, I beg you. Ministers, I beg you. Please stop framing mental illness as a spiritual issue because it isn't. When someone has high blood pressure, we don't call it spiritual issues. When they need a surgery, we don't call it spiritual issues. When they have diabetes or they have a fracture, if somebody breaks their leg, we don't call it spiritual issues. So you are not, you have not been taken over by a demon. It's not a demonic thing. It's not a weakness thing. It's not a lack of faith. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who are pastors, spiritual people, do suffer from depression. They deal with anxiety. They hide it because they're afraid to share because they feel like, well, if I'm a Christian or a Muslim or whatever faith I am, I need to show that I am strong. And that if I have an illness, like a mental illness, then it shows that maybe I don't have a strong faith. We have no business trying to, defend God's power. It's almost as if we're trying to protect God by admitting that we have a weakness. It's almost as if we're trying to say, well, God is not strong if I admit that I am suffering. And God did not, make us people who will have to be defending him. We're not God's lawyers or barristers. So I have to tell you, pastors, encourage your congregation to be honest and to seek help. Pastors are not equipped to treat mental illness. Because you're a pastor and you're filled with the Holy Ghost does not equip you to treat mental illness. Because you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation is not being equipped to deal with something that is clinical. The same way that if you have a broken leg, you don't take it to your pastor for them to perform, some kind of surgery. If you're having a baby, you don't go to your pastor to help deliver the child. If you have high blood pressure or diabetes, you don't go to the doctor to get help. It's the exact same thing. When people have mental illness, direct them to the right place. They need to go to see a therapist. They need to go and see their doctor. It's okay to take medication to feel better. It's okay to go and talk to someone about how you're feeling. But what you should not do is suffer in silence because depression kills if left untreated. But a lot of these things can be treated. So I just want to encourage you, please pass this on. Talk to your doctor. Talk to your pastor. Talk to your friends. Share this video because we need to deal with mental illness as what it is. It's just an illness. It's just another illness and we just need to take care of it. Instead of trying to make people feel bad about the way that they feel, and then at the end of the day we leave them in a secret place, in a dark place, where they have to pretend for the world, and then they're suffering, and the next thing we know, we see someone jump off a bridge. What drives somebody to jump off a bridge? Because they feel hopeless. Because they live in an environment where they're being told that there's something, fundamentally wrong with their being. Because they feel like they're suffering alone. Depression can be very seductive and make you feel like you are alone. And that's the reason why people do tend to isolate. We don't need to hide anymore. Pass this video around. Get help, because your life is worth it. And if you have any questions for me about mental illness, if you're struggling with it, if you have any questions for me, write it here, put it in the inbox. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions that's related to mental illness. I hope you're all having a fabulous day. The weather is fantastic over here. So I'm going to leave now, and I'll be back soon. Have a lovely day. My name again is Jumi Olawale, and see you soon. Bye-bye.